Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to Based on a Book, the podcast where we save the day through no direct action of our own. I'm Crystal, your host for the day, and I will absolutely leave you behind to save my own skin.
And I'm Keri, and thankfully, Tom Cruise isn't my dad.
And I'm Lindsey, the champion of justice.
This week we are covering The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, originally published in 1898 to the surprise of a couple of our co-hosts.
Let's not talk about it.
Call us both out.
And the 2005 movie starring Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning. We're going to do this one a little bit different. We'll start off, as usual, with our setting the scene, a synopsis of the story, and our no spoilers reviews. But then we're not going to go chapter by chapter after the spoiler warning because the majority of these chapters are the same. So the synopsis is really simple, though. The story is these things, these huge cylinders, these capsules of some kind, come to us from the planet Mars, and we are invaded by Martians. And the narrator, or Tom Cruise, in the book it's just a narrator, in the movie it's Tom Cruise, have to survive. And that's basically the entire story, is their fight to survive. So let's start with Keri. What did you think of the book?
Why are we starting with me?
Because I already know what you're going to say. Lindsey's the wild card here. So, Keri, what you got?
Okay, so I listened to the book
Okay.
because I kind of jump between physically reading and listening to the book. I believe it's narrated by, excuse my pronunciation, I think it's Vikas Adam, who I think did a really great job at narrating the book. But I'm giving my rating is 2 nervous breakdowns out of 5. 1 for the main character and 1 for myself for reading this book. Because that's what I did when I was finished.
I'm proud of you. Good job.
Honestly, I'm proud of myself for finally finishing it because I felt like it was never going to end.
That's
it felt literally like the longest book ever, and I don't even think it was 300 pages.
No, it's not even 200.
It took me like 13 hours to finish this book.
Yeah, like I was shocked. I can appreciate it for what it is, like as in being, the earliest books to discuss this topic.
Right.
But I mean, I can appreciate it for that. And I'm like, if you love it, I love that for you. But it's just not for me.
Lindsey, what did you think?
Well, if I had to read Said I one more time, after everything he said I. But other than that, I actually really enjoyed the story. And unfortunately, my rating is 2 wheels out of 5 because aliens don't use wheels.
I have that. That's one of my marks. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know which one. It's in there somewhere.
Somewhere in the Post-its.
So I think I agree with you both. I have a really hard time choosing a rating for this because not only was it written in 1898 using words in English that for the most part, we don't even really use some of these words anymore. We don't use these phrases. Our syntax has changed. So it's written in a style that made me have to slow down. But also it's written based outside of London and in like the English countryside and like all these like small towns and areas. And I don't know where any of those are. I don't know how to pronounce some of those. I didn't quite there was no map. Like usually in a book that talks about a crap ton of places, you'll have like a map. And so that was, so like, it was hard to read. This is not even a 200-page story. And it was a struggle to get through. Having said that, the story itself, like the basis of the story, the aliens coming to Earth, the science behind the aliens, the way that they try to survive, the way that they like learn about the aliens through their survival, like all of that is really compelling and it's really a great story. It's just the way it's written, I'm sure back then was amazing and perfect for a reader over 100 years ago. But for somebody trying to read this now, it was very tedious. So, like, overall, the book and the way it's written, I'm kind of with you guys. It's like a 2. But the story, if we could like extrapolate just the story and the plot, is probably a solid 4. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it had me kind of like, kind of like like stunned a few times, and like it made me my wheels turn, and it made me go like, "Oh, that makes sense," and "Oh, that's kind of crazy." And there's just enough science in here that at the time was the correct science. Now we know it's not, but there's just enough, real science in here to make the story believable. And so yeah, I think this was really difficult to get through, but worth getting through.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of how I felt. Like, it was drowning in the language.
Yeah,
Like, the story was just drowning in the language, and I feel like I would have enjoyed the story if it wasn't for how it was told.
yeah,
Even when later on, the entire story is told, like, about 2 characters. It's about the main character, which, again, doesn't have a
doesn't have a
name.
name. What is it with
That's my
nameless
biggest pet
characters?
peeve.
Here we
My
go again.
biggest pet peeve is when our main character does not have a name.
I knew she'd go off on
Look
this
out,
one.
Martians. Keri's going to orbit.
Yeah, sent me straight to orbit. I'm orbiting. I'm orbiting right now. Okay, I'm back. And
HG, come on. You gotta be naming people.
so it's told with the main character, but the main character is also telling his brother's story.
Right.
But it's not in the brother's perspective.
No, he keeps saying, my brother, my
Yeah,
brother.
like he's witnessing his brother doing things, but he's not there with his brother.
Right.
It's almost
So,
and never he doesn't never meet up with his brother.
no. And I love that he added the perspective of his brother,
Yeah, that
similar to
perspective was
like,
entertaining to me.
it really was. And it reminded me a lot of like World War Z, where we see a story from afterward, like people are reflecting on what happened, but we see it from different perspectives. And I think that that really added to the understanding of what these aliens were and how they were operating, and the human response to that. Because we have the main character, the narrator is out in the like countryside, whereas his brother is in the heart of London. And so we kind of see the different responses of the country folk versus the city folk. And I really enjoyed that different perspective. But the fact that it was written as,
Yeah, it was just
my
written.
brother did this, said
Yeah,
my brother, then my brother did that. And it was just like, why couldn't you just like title the chapter like from
the writing just felt
Joe's
super
point of view?
awkward.
We didn't even learn the brother's name, did we? I don't think we did. Of all the
No, I
notes I
don't
have,
remember.
I don't think that's one of them.
No,
Like,
I'm sick of not knowing
oh,
these
and we
characters'
didn't learn
names.
his wife's name either. Like, and the main character is trying to get back to his, like, get separated from his wife at one point and tries to get back. So rather than, did you guys have any like extra reviews you wanted to give before we get into some spoilers?
The only review, I mean, is just that I get it. I get the hype as somebody, if you are like a classic sci-fi reader, like I get that this is like the base of a
Hmm.
lot of stories, a lot of sci-fi stories. So like a lot of other books are taking from this material, kind of like what people say about like Lord of the Rings or something. Like it's
Right.
like, a lot of fantasy stories are taking it from this story or even from before that or something.
Hmm.
And I get it. I just like I'm bored.
It's not your jam.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm bored. What
It's
do you
not your
want from
jam.
me?
But wait, I'll tell you why it is your jam here in just a little bit. Lindsay, do you have any extra reviews or thoughts before we get into Spoilerville?
No, I'm ready for Spoilerville.
Let's
Let's
do
go.
it. Okay, so this
Yes.
is your spoiler warning. If you want to read the book, if we've said anything that interested you at all, now is your chance to go do that. If you want to watch the movie, which is different from the book, but for the most part, aliens invade Earth, Tom Cruise has to try and save the day, whatever, go do that or not. It was kind of crappy, not gonna lie. There are
Don't watch the
also
wrong movie by mistake also.
I was gonna say there's a million adaptations, actually, like tons.
Yeah.
There's a 1953 movie. There's the Orson Welles radio broadcast from I think 1938. Yep, 1938. There's another movie in 2005 that came out the same time as the Tom Cruise one. I'm sure it
Yep.
went straight to television, didn't it? I think it
It
did.
did.
Yeah. So if you're interested in any of those, now's your chance to pause this, go do that, and you can always come back to us because we will be right here waiting for you. But we are currently going to move ahead with full spoilers. This is where we're going to depart from our normal chapter to chapter review of the book because the majority of the chapters in this book are all the same, running from the aliens. The aliens catch up, you hide until the aliens pass by, and then you run again. So rather than reviewing every single chapter, I wanted to talk about the mechanisms used in this book that set the stage for a ton of other books. Specifically, any of those like alien invasion or otherworldly invasion or, creatures from the mist, or perhaps terrorists from unknown terrorists, in like Leave the World Behind. And like that first thing that happens is we have a few odd occurrences, right? There's an odd storm, there's some weird stuff in the sky, there's some, weird text messages or whatever. Like you'll get a few little weird odd occurrences that seem out of place, but for the most part you can write off. And then the
Yeah.
next thing you know, in every one of these stories, communication gets cut off.
Yep. It's a classic, like, apocalyptic.
Every single time. And this is where it kind of started, right? And then
Mhm.
with the communication gets turned off, suddenly you become isolated, right? They want to isolate you. So then you become isolated because of technology failures. Or like at the time in War of the Worlds in the book, they originally they talk about how the Martians are purposely disconnecting the telegraph wires,
Yeah.
right? So like they tried to send news to London that this capsule, this alien craft had landed in this field outside of this town of outside of Woking. And they try to send a telegraph, but it's too late. The aliens have cut the telegraph wires. And back in London, they're just like, oh, our reporter hasn't gotten back to us yet. They
Which
don't
is
think anything of it.
something that's something I could not grasp my head around, which is something I actually really enjoyed reading about, is the fact that being set, like, in the late 1800s in this book, I could not even physically imagine, like, I feel like alien invasion, modern day, like,
Mhm.
movies and stuff that I've seen, like, I feel like we are very involved in space nowadays,
Yes.
you know? And I'm imagining seeing something like this in, like, the late 1800s. That would be the craziest thing that
Mhm.
you would ever see. And the
Mhm.
fact that, like, the only like, nowadays, we would have, like, I mean, you can't because, like, the phones would shut off and things like that, like, if you go by what's going on in, like, the 2005 movie. But, like, the way that communication was being so slow moving to
Mhm.
London
Mhm.
was freaking me out.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're, like, running away from Martians
Mhm.
that are blasting them with, like, heat rays and stuff, and
And
they're
getting
running away
away,
with, like, buggies and things, like, they're,
right.
like, in,
And
like,
then when they get away to
carriages.
like a mile down the road to the inn or whatever, and they're like, you better run. They're like, what? It's a beautiful day. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we're
Like a
gonna all
mile
sit in an
away, they had
inn.
no idea.
Yeah, like, there's no the communication was so slow to get
Mhm.
to different places. And, I mean, maybe that would have been the case also now if, like, the all technology was shut off and stuff, but, like, I just could not, like, they're all, like, riding horses and, like, being in, like,
Mhm.
the way that they were moving and, like, migrating to different areas, it was just so crazy to me. I was like, "Oh
Right?
my
Well, I mean, think
god."
about it in the 2005 movie when there's like some sort of EMP. They explain it as an
Yeah.
EMP that wipes out all the electronics. And so, like, the televisions aren't working. All the cars have now died. The cell phones aren't working. And Tom Cruise, like, runs to kind of investigate what the heck was with that lightning,
Yeah.
and the aliens come out and he starts attacking right away. And Tom Cruise runs like 4 or 5 blocks back towards home. And the guy at the car shop a block down, just down the street from his house has no idea what's going on.
Mhm.
Like he
Yeah.
was in the same like 10-block radius
True.
of the alien and he had no idea what was going on.
That's true.
So, it I think same with like Leave the World Behind, right? Like they would have kept on carrying on with their vacation
Yeah.
had the owners not showed up at that Airbnb and been like, "Have you noticed that the world is ending?" You know?
Yeah, until, like,
Like
that big sound came, and then they would've been like, "What is going on?"
exactly. So, that's kind of that, like, isolation, that cutting off communication. These are, like, classic tropes that we see again and again and again, and it kind of started with H.G. Wells. He was the first one to kind of point out that, like, these are the weak spots in our society. This is how they could take us out. This is how anybody could get at us. He also brings up how different the alien life is from ours. Specifically, he kind of mentions evolution, right? Like they've had a longer opportunity to evolve because Mars is older than us. So if Mars is older than us, they've evolved longer. They have really big brains, but they don't necessarily need bones and in their bodies. They have and they're so smart. They have this technology that's far and above ours. You know, so again, he was one of the first ones to mention aliens at all of any kind, let alone Martians. And at the time, his idea that there was life on Mars was kind of grounded in the science that they had at the time,
Mhm.
so it was kind of a terrifying idea. He extrapolated from the science that was already there, which leads into the 1938 Orson Welles radio broadcast that incited panic in people because the the story was so believable, right? Like
Yeah.
this, and it was a radio program. I listened to it just honestly like an hour ago, and it starts out with like music. It's like, welcome to the I can't really ballroom radio hour. We're gonna play classic ballroom hits from this dance hall or whatever, and they start playing music. And so it sounds like it's about to be an hour's worth of, dance music. And they kind of break in with like news report, breaking news, an object has fallen to the earth. Scientists are on their way to examine it. We'll let you know if we hear more kind of thing, right? It's kind of like a neato news story meteorite. And then they go back to the music. And then about 2 minutes of music, which was kind of enjoyable, like it kind of set it up like you didn't know that this was necessarily going to be a story. It sounded like news. And what they were saying was so believable at the time. Like even listening to it now and kind of like putting myself back in the mind of someone in 1938, like you're talking about scientists are going and the power's gone out in the area, so they're having to use the portable radio, and people in the area are breaking out flashlights and torches in order to see. And
Yeah.
they're talking about like a scientist has said that there's some noise coming from the meteorite. What do you think that noise is? And it's uneven cooling of the surface after reentry through our atmosphere. And he's like using scientific terms. So I understand why that made people panic and why
Yeah.
that was terrifying. Reading it now, I'm over here like life on Mars. You guys are hilarious, like
I feel like we're all up in Mars's business now.
I mean, we have so many spacecraft on
Yeah.
Mars, taking pictures of Mars, taking pictures of all the other planets. You know, like and that's the other thing is, like, at the time, we were watching Mars,
Yeah.
and it's mentioned in the book, Schiaparelli mapping of Mars, like, he's actually got, I think, a crater on Mars or something. He's got, like, you know, a scientist of the time who spent tons of time literally watching Mars, which is kind of what leads into the story is that, like, something was noticed from all these scientists watching Mars.
Yeah.
You know, but through all of their observation at the time, they still didn't really have the facts that we have now. And I think that's where the 2005 movie kind of got it right. And I feel like we can probably talk forever about the movie here in a little bit
Yeah. I
because
was
that was
gonna say
awful.
that 2005 movie, like, even the movie, like, whenever I was laughing because I was watching it with my family, and I was laughing because I was like, "Honestly, if, like, these, like, big things, like, came out of the
The
ground,
tripods.
like, the tripods came out of the ground, like, at first, if I saw, like, someone had, like, a video of it or something, at first I'd be like, "Is that, like, something from, like, SpaceX? Like, what the heck is that?" Like, I wouldn't even
Right.
think immediately that it's a Martian or, like, aliens or something. Like,
Yeah, no, it's
that's how close even from 2005 to now, like, that's how close we are to, like, something crazy like that, I
pretty much. I
feel.
mean, it's almost 20 years later. You know, we've got billionaires that build stuff like that now. So,
Exactly, that's why I was like, honestly, that doesn't even feel, like,
can
that
I order one
crazy.
of those on
Yeah.
Amazon? Like, you know?
Kara, you sounded like Brent Norton from The Mist.
Oh my god.
No, I don't I'm like, "I don't believe anybody." I'm
Tentacles
gonna walk
from SpaceX.
Yeah,
Can we
I'm gonna
talk
walk
about
right out.
tentacles? What is it with us and tentacles and the scary things? I don't like that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about the differences in the movie. Can let's so how do we feel about the movie? Like I'm just gonna go right out there and say that this was the worst movie in the world.
What?
This was
Okay,
horrible.
l
This
go
was
ahead,
so bad.
Lindsay. Lindsay, you go.
It was okay. I mean, it's a Tom Cruise action sci-fi alien movie. Like it's pretty I don't know.
I'm about to just wreck this movie for all of
Not
you.
you
Hurry
cracking
up.
your knuckles
I'm ready. Let's do
like you're
this.
about to go boxing.
I'm
I
ready to
hated this
fight,
movie
go
so
throw
much.
down.
So, I the only reason I love this movie so much is because I used to watch it a lot when I was younger, like a ton. I used to love this movie. I don't know why, don't ask me why. I used to watch it so much. Okay, so crazy. When I was younger, I had the biggest crush on the teenage son when I
Oh
was
my
younger.
god.
He's from Shameless, I
Jimmy
didn't even
Jimmy
realize
Steve
that.
Jack.
Yeah, I was like, "Wait a second, why does he kinda look familiar?" I was like, I totally remember." I was like, "I feel my crush, like, coming back right now." Like, "Oh my god."
I love him.
Yeah, yeah, so then I went and looked up what else he was from, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's also in Shameless. He's Fiona's boyfriend in, like, the 1st season."
Yep, Jimmy
He
Steve
was
Jack.
also awful in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, rewatching it, it just, like, gives me, like, nostalgia because, I mean, like, when you loved it at a certain time, like, you're always gonna love it kinda thing, and that's, like, how I felt
Okay.
whenever I watched it. And I mean, obviously, things are probably wrong with it, but I just, like I don't know, it's so entertaining to me. It's the
Things are
only Tom Cruise
probably wrong with it.
That's the
Like,
only Tom Cruise
everything is
movie
wrong
I
with it.
like. It's literally the only Tom Cruise movie I like, and that's it. But,
So,
I mean, the
okay.
whole time, I'm, like, annoyed about every single one every single person in it, like, I'm yelling
Well,
at it the
yeah.
whole time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's so entertaining to me.
So, I am not a Tom Cruise fan as a general rule. I don't like the things that he's in.
Yeah.
He was not the worst part of this movie at
Yeah.
all.
I thought he did pretty well. I think he does pretty well in this one.
As a general rule, I love Dakota Fanning. She's an incredible actress, especially as a child. Like, as a child
Mhm.
actress, she was great. She sucked in this movie, and I don't think it's her fault. I think the direction was awful. Like,
Shut up, Rachel.
listen, if I had to hear that kid scream
Yeah, just
one more
it's
time,
just standing there screaming,
just
not
screaming.
moving, just screaming.
I'm pretty sure if you timed her screams and then timed her dialogue, she screamed more than she spoke.
Yeah, probably.
It was insane. But let's talk about the science for a minute because This is a
I don't wanna
sci-fi
talk about the
movie.
science.
I know,
Can
but
we
this is
talk
a
about how she was nominated as the most useless thing to happen in an apocalypse by MTV?
I mean, like, at one point, she almost gets eaten by the alien, and then somehow she survives, and I was mad about it. Like, honestly, a lot of people survived in this movie, and I'm mad about it, but let's talk about the science, because that's the first thing that just set me off within 15 minutes of the start.
I bet it
Like,
was.
we got like, Tom Cruise is a crane operator, which has
And
nothing to
he
do with the
got a
story.
license. He was probably like, "I'm gonna learn how to do this, like, I'm not gonna have a
For
stunt
this
double do this."
1 30-second scene in
Yeah.
the movie,
Yeah, so
I'm
he went
going
and
to get
got
certified.
yeah, he went
Like,
and got, forklift certified for this.
dummy, dumb, dummy. But so he's a forklift operator and a shitty father. Like, right off the bat, like, he's yelling at his kids. They're like, "Well, okay, well, we're here now. What are," because they're like there for the weekend or whatever. Mom
He
and
lives like a
stepdad drop them
college
off.
student.
He lives like a college student.
Except
There's no
that
freaking
car.
food in the house.
He's drifting into his parking spot for some reason. I'm like, "W you're on, like, in a neighborhood, like,
Yeah, like,
chill."
it was very weird.
We
Eh,
all see that you have a small
yep,
you know.
he was compensating for sure. Well, he was
I ain't gonna say
compensating.
it, but you know.
He was awful dad. He's, like, griping at his kids for stuff that's, like, they wanted food. Like, they wanted to be able to eat, and he's
He
like,
only
"Well,
has
then order something,
condiments.
I'm going to bed." Like, "Okay, dad." Like, "Great."
Okay,
But
Ray.
so then, like, the aliens, like, the lightning happens, and we think there's something going on, and the EMP happens, right?
Mhm.
So, like, the phones don't work. The television doesn't come on. All the
His
electricity
watch
is out.
doesn't work.
His watch doesn't work. He runs down the street to see what's up. He checks out where the lightning struck. There's something rumbling under the ground.
And
And
yet
here's a
people are
guy with a
filming everyone. Yeah.
camcorder. You're telling me that none of the electronics work, but dude's camcorder somehow survived? Like, no. Don't believe that. Then dude's all like, replace the solenoid in the van because, like, that's gonna fix it. Okay, if there's an EMP, the solenoid is not the major problem you're gonna have in your vehicle right now. I promise you. And maybe
Yeah,
it's
I
20
didn't get
years
that.
later, like, there were a lot of more mechanical type cars on the road in the early 2000s, but it was definitely not the Chrysler Town and Country, and that's what he was driving. So that's my second problem. Mr. Replace the solenoid, which was just a part of the start. Like, don't even get me started. I was mad about that. Then, like, they run off to where I guess the mom and stepdad's house, and they get there
Wait.
with his
Back
box of
up.
food.
Yeah. He's like, "Okay." He tells his son, he's like, "Take this box and fill it up with,
All
all
the
the food
food in the
that you can,"
refrigerator. Like,
which is only condiments.
Well,
yeah.
And they're
obviously there was no food. They had to order food for dinner.
yeah.
But he didn't
So
go get the hummus.
He
I'm
didn't
just
want
saying,
that hummus.
I would have saved the hummus.
and
I'm
he's
just
running around like they're literally running for their lives with this box. And I was like, "Drop the box. There's nothing important in that
drop the
box.
box.
Like, just drop the box." He's like literally in the front seat of this car, and they're flying around and he's holding on to this box with his
And
dear
Dakota
life.
Fanning in the background screaming in the back seat, and he's just yelling at her to shut up. Like, that's helpful. Tom
Yes.
Cruise,
And so yeah, so they
Ray.
get back to the
Like,
mom and stepdad's house
and so
with
then
this
he's all like,
box.
"Okay, we gotta, like, let's make something to eat while we're here."
Well, first
And
off, they
like,
just walk into this house, the door's unlocked, the lights are on, and there's
and
no
that
one
was a
home.
really fancy neighborhood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
no, but
I
whatever.
think the lights were on because it was supposed to show us that, like, their electricity works or
Yeah, because they're,
something.
like, far enough away now that the EMP didn't
Yeah,
affect that
which is
neighborhood yet.
dumb.
It agreed. But again, 2005, I'll give them that they didn't have fancy EMPs back then. But this is, again, alien technology. Like, you're telling me they didn't have an EMP that was gonna do, like, a 300-mile rate. I digress. So, he's like, "Let's make some food." And so he's digging through the box of food. You are literally standing in a fancy house with a full kitchen. Open a freaking cabinet, my friend. Like, you didn't even bother to look in the refrigerator. And so then you're all like, "Peanut butter sandwiches it is." And your daughter is telling you she's allergic to peanut butter, and you're questioning that. Like,
Since birth.
Also, let's go back to the son and the daughter here. Like, it's their house. Why didn't they open cabinets? Like, are you useless? Are they? They're useless children. So, like, I kind
Most
of
useless thing
understand.
to have in an apocalypse.
I'm telling you. So, like, way
Yeah.
further down the line, when Robbie, the son, is trying to get away, and Tom Cruise is like, no, stay with us, stay with. I would have been like, bye. Like,
Yeah. Which
Dang.
honestly, can we talk like can we get into that? Because I really didn't understand why he was trying to run away so badly.
because he's dumb.
Yeah, like he was like crying desperate to get away from them to go
To go,
fight.
like, stand with the army.
For
I don't
what?
the army that was losing, by the way.
Yeah, but
Like,
like literally for what? I don't
mm,
understand
he
that.
was just dumb. I didn't, and that's why
Like he
I
was
have
possessed.
well, and, like, okay, so I have 2 children. One is an adult now, and one is definitely not. He's 5. If my adult daughter were, like, absolutely obsessed with leaving me, and, like, it was causing me to fall behind and put my other kid in danger, like, I would have cut her loose. I would have been like, "Mama loves you. Good luck. Bye." Like, and she knows it. This is not
Mhm.
like, we don't hold each other back, and that, like, and I understand that this Robbie kid was, I think he was 16, 16.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think he was an adult.
He wasn't an adult, but, like, old enough to know better. Like, damn,
Like old
son.
enough to like I need you to get it together
What,
because
like,
we're like
no
in
survival
dire
instinct at
yeah.
all.
Like I like couldn't I was like, "What the heck are you doing? Like why are you like possessed?" Like he's like, "Well, I need to get to the light." Like I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Like a
You're like
moth to the
crawl
deadly flame. Like,
Yeah,
go
like
on,
you're
son.
crawling through the army crawling through the grass for
And then,
no
like,
reason.
he's, like, laying down in this, like, euphoric, like, "Let me go, dad. I need this."
I
Like,
would be like,
what?
"Peace. Okay,
Pretty
see ya."
much, like, gone.
All the
Like
while,
I'm
Dakota Fanning's almost getting kidnapped.
Yeah,
Right.
and she's not being like, "Dad, hey, over here." Like I'm like
"There's
my
my
dad
dad
is
right
right
there.
there.
Stop it." Like,
And like I'm gonna go walk over to my dad now. Like stop trying to
and
kidnap
that
me,
psycho woman is
strangers.
like, "Come with us. Come with, you can't stay here, honey." Like, you don't know that kid. Like,
Yeah, it's like the end like leave me alone. Like save
pretty much.
yourselves. Like what are you doing?
It was just, and then, okay, so then, like, let's go back to when they're in the house. They make peanut butter sandwiches, the deadly sandwich, and then he's like, "We're not sleeping upstairs. We're sleeping in the basement." You know,
Didn't even talk about Tom Cruise feeding the window a peanut butter sandwich.
Also him like grabbing out the entire loaf of bread and like throwing it on the counter. I'm like, okay, you heathen.
this is why he lived the way he lived, and this is why his wife left him and he was divorced. I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
I'm like, it
like,
shows.
it shows. Like, I don't think he brought anything to that marriage at all.
No.
But so they go sleep in the basement. It's probably the smartest decision that Tom Cruise made in the whole movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
they sleep in the basement. They
When it's the
didn't,
end of the world, that's where you go. You go to the basement.
pretty much. Honestly, that's also a trope, and
Yeah.
true. There's a reason. Like,
Yeah.
so he goes to the basement, but once again, he thought before they left his house, fill the box with food, even though he had no food. Here they are in a house that's probably got a well-stocked pantry, and he's not like, "Let's take some food to the basement."
Yeah.
I just, that was literally the last time that he mentioned, like, getting food was at his house. Like, you realize everybody eats multiple times a day, right? Like, especially children.
I know because after that, I don't think I we see them eat another time.
No. I will say, in the book, when the main character goes back to try and give the buggy back, which I don't understand why he went back. Like,
I don't understand that either.
he was just trying to be a nice guy. Again, this is the difference between, like, the country folk and the city folk. So he goes to, like, take the buggy back because his original plan for getting the buggy was like, "I don't want my wife to have to walk. You know, I don't
Yeah.
want my servant." He had a servant. "I don't want my servant to have to walk. We'll take some things with us." They chose to take their plates. Again, that's one of these 80 flags I have noted. They choose to take some plates with them for reasons unknown. They take the buggy to, like, her cousin's house or her in-laws' house, something like that, in a couple towns over. And then he is gonna go take the carriage back, the dog cart back to the guy he rented it from. and that's when they get separated. But like he runs into a soldier at one point, and like the soldier comes into his house with him to like give him shelter for a minute. And before they leave again, the soldier's like, let's make sure we take provisions with us. Let's get some food. And the main character's all like, oh, okay, we'll do that. And so fills their pockets, fills up their flask with some whiskey, gets some water, fills up their pockets with food. And then they leave. And he like wouldn't have had it not been for that soldier. And of course, then like everything gets destroyed. The aliens attack again and they're running and then they hide. And before he leaves his hidey place again, he thinks to himself, I've learned from that soldier, I need to be taking food with me.
Yeah.
And so, like, even in the book, he knows, like, grab food when you can. So then,
Yeah.
like, in the night, the Tom Cruise in the basement, back to the movie, while I jump around everywhere here. They go back, they're in the house. There's some sort of weird explosion in the night. They end up going into like the sub basement in order to survive. And in the morning, they find out that like this plane has crashed. It
Yeah.
looked like it might have been more than one plane. I couldn't really tell, but it was at the very least one huge plane.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like taken out the majority of the neighborhood. And what do we come across? But a news van that's working, I might add.
Yeah.
And all of their equipment seems to be working because the news lady is like, check out this footage. Okay, you got footage inside an area where there was just an EMP.
To the point where a plane crashed.
And then so like she's showing them all this footage of the places she's been. How are you getting that footage if the equipment doesn't work? Number one, because there was EMPs in those areas.
Yeah.
And now you somehow survived the plane crash and you somehow have a working vehicle. And even those guys knew to get food and they were raiding the beverage cart of the crashed airplane.
Yeah.
And what
he's
does Tom
still not
Cruise
doing
carry with
anything.
him? Nothing. He throws the kids back in the van and leaves, even though they had a somewhat secure location in that basement. He's like, nope, got to get out of here.
The
We're
only
going to
thing
head
he's
back to mom.
carrying is a gun, and that's it.
Is that tiny little revolver.
Yeah.
That little...
Also, whenever they meet up with the news crew and they see the video and everything in the movie, that's also like a pivotal moment where we figure out how they got there.
Right. That whatever these
and I need to
tripods were underground.
I need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I need us to unpack this real quick. Okay? Because that lady said that these tripods have been underground for centuries, quote centuries. Okay? And the lightning basically sent these Martians into the tripods, right? There is literally, I really want to know, I'm not grasping how these tripods could be underground, especially in New York with all these subway systems and everything. These giant, like, they're not just like small little tripods.
No.
Like, they literally like bursted out of the ground and they're huge. These giant tripods are just sitting in the ground and nobody saw them and noticed.
And all over the world. All over the
Yeah.
world, tons of them.
So how did no one see this?
So
No one
all I
detect
can
this?
figure is that they were like under where the like subways, like way down deep, right?
Yeah.
And so like deeper than we would have gone. And I mean, we've seen it before. You'll see it all over the internet now, like strange structure found under Arctic tundra, strange structure found under cave in wherever. Like they're always saying they found strange structures or unexplainable structures. And usually it just turns out to be like a dense pocket of lead that was pushed up during, a prehistoric magma, balloon or something, So like there's usually explanations for it, but I think this was kind of what they were trying to hint towards, is that like these were super deep and these were some of these strange unexplained structures that were super deep that nobody knew about.
Yeah. And like the lightning, like whenever it was like striking like 20 some times in one spot, it was like sending these Martians into those things.
Right.
Those structures underneath.
Also is not exactly scientifically sound from what we know now, but again, this is supposed to be like some advanced technological civilization. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So we don't really have to understand it. That's where you're supposed to kind of suspend disbelief for a bit.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was like, "What?" Like, I don't know if I'm vibing with that, but, this is I'm just like, I'm just here for a good time. I'm
right.
just cruising,
Well,
I'm
and I mean,
cruising
like,
with Tom Cruise.
Tom cruising.
Sam, I'm not gonna forgive you for saying that. That's gonna be stuck in my head now. Thank you.
I didn't mean to say that, it just came out.
I'm done. I'm
Tom
done.
Cruise, the crane operator.
Oh my gosh. Ray.
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 Ray
Freaking Ray.
Farrier. Ray Farrier. Isn't a farrier someone who puts like fixes horseshoes, like shoes
I don't
horses? That's a
know.
farrier, isn't it?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
But anyway, I thought it
Possibly.
was funny that like he's a crane operator and you named him like a job that's not operating cranes. I don't know, like just name him like,
Tom Cruise could do it. He'll figure it out.
oh my god, he'd spend 6 months apprenticing to a horseshoer.
Yeah,
Like
he would.
he could be a jockey. He's short.
He's so annoying.
Oh my gosh. So let's go back to lightning and transferring things.
Let's go back to lightning
Reel it
transferring
back
things.
in.
Okay,
I will
I'm
say though,
back.
like, although this is like obviously you can't travel by lightning, but it's not an unknown idea.
You can't?
I mean, the thing is like it's not an unknown idea in a lot of science fiction, right? Like even Star Trek, like they use the transporters, like it's an arrangement of photons, so like it's traveling by light. You know what I mean? So although I don't think that lightning strikes are quite what they mean by that, but also like I don't know. I am not a physicist. I'm not. Like I
Cosplay.
cosplay at being a scientist.
Survivalist and physicist.
I cosplay a lot of things. It's
Yeah.
fun. Why not? It's just
Yeah, there you
adult. It's
go.
grown up pretend. It's grown up pretend, and I'm here for it. So
I love that for you. I love it.
It's like LARPing.
where's Tom Cruise now? Where do we get?
He's about to leave
Oh,
the house because there's a plane crash. He saw the news people.
right.
He's
So
like,
then
where's Tom Cruise?
Dakota Fanning has to pee, and so they stop in the middle of nowhere and in a field. Okay, first of all, I get that they're city folk, but like if you gotta pull over on the side of the road to pee, you pull over somewhere where there's bushes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Like
Or pull down a little further where there's a house and she can just go pee in the house, behind the house.
right.
Yeah.
But like instead he pulls off like in this field and then gets mad at her when she goes to like try to find something to get behind
Yeah.
because she doesn't want to be seen. And what girl wants to be seen by her dad when she's peeing? Come on.
Yeah.
And he gets
Like,
mad at her. He's like, not too far. Not too far. Come, I won't look. I just want to be able to see you. Like,
what does that even mean?
like weirdo. Having said that, she wanders a little too far and she sees all the bodies floating downstream. Like,
Yeah. Now she's traumatized.
now she's traumatized, all because Tom Cruise just decided to stop in the most random of places. This is another example of like the whole alpha male, I know what's best. I like, and then
Mhm.
completely screwing it up because you can't think of anyone but yourself.
Yeah, he's like, I know what's best, but I also like I'm never around my kids
Right. So
either.
I don't know anything about my kids and I don't know what
Yeah.
they need,
Yeah.
but also I know what's best.
And
And
then
then so like the caravan comes down the road
yeah,
and old Robbie's there trying to join the army.
he's like
Like,
begging them. He's like running after them.
I
I'm
want
like,
to be all I can be. Wait, is that that's the is that I don't remember what branch of the military that is. But like he's out there just like take me, like I'm coming, like give me a
I'm just like,
gun.
what is this storyline? Like,
Like
it's
you're
not like
12, Robbie. Sit down.
yeah. And he's like, I'm sorry, or Tom Cruise. he's like, I'm sorry, we can't enlist your 10-year-old sister in the military.
Right?
Like,
And of course now
we can't be
Dakota
doing
Fanning is
that.
crying and screaming, "Where are you going?
Yeah.
No, Robbie, no, you can't
Can't leave
leave."
me. Who's
Like,
gonna take care
ugh.
of me?
Yeah.
She was so wasted in this movie. She's such a great actress, and they wasted all of her talent by telling her to just scream and whine all the time.
You were meaning wasted as in like
No,
she was so wasted. I'm
let's
like,
get the 10-year-old
"What?"
drunk. Great. I mean, it's the end of the world. Why not?
She was so wasted in this movie. She's just
No, her
stumbling
talent was
around.
wasted. She's such a good actress, and like literally all I can imagine is the director being like, "I need you to be more panicked. I need you to scream more.
Yeah.
Can you whine a bit more? I need you to be absolutely useless."
Just keep
She,
screaming and crying.
like that's all you need to do. Like you have one line. It's an A sharp. Go. Like, you know.
More vibrato. More
Can
vibrato in
you
the
hold it out
scream.
longer? Can you add a little more whine to it? Like we need it to sound like
We
and then
need
her
it to
dead-eyed
burn our
stare.
ears.
I will say her dead-eyed stare a couple of times. That was spot on. That was spot
Yeah.
on. That like dead inside finally gone. Like
Yeah.
psychotic break, like just like done.
It's because she had
That
to work
that
with
was
Tom
good.
Cruise.
Yeah.
Pretty
Over it.
much. She was like, if I have to look at this motherfucker one more time.
Yeah, literally.
If I have to yell, Daddy, Daddy, like, ugh.
Literally. So
Poor kid.
whenever I think after this, is this where they head to the ferry after this point?
Yes. So
Like they're
they're
just driving to the
well, they get
ferry.
to the town.
Also, they've never stopped for gas
They
once.
never stop for gas. And they left in the morning. And at nighttime, they're still driving. And I know that like for a minivan, they don't get horrible gas mileage, but it's not that good.
Yeah.
It's not that good. So I don't really get that. And like so they start seeing more people walking along the road,
This
right?
part really scares me. Like
Yeah,
this
it's
part scared
terrifying.
me bad.
This is another
I
one
don't
of
like
those.
mob, and
Nope.
this is like The Mist,
Yeah.
Yep.
where
Yep.
there's like this mob
People start
mentality
turning on each
thing
other
happening.
and
Yeah,
yep.
it
But
gets
like they're
real
driving,
scary.
they start running in, like there's more people around them on the road. His son is driving at the time, and so he like takes over driving because there's more people around. And we see like a lady walking down the street with her horse with a phone number written on the side of the horse. We see people pushing like shopping carts full of their belongings. And it's the most random stuff. There was like the one lady like pushing the Encyclopedia Britannica, like every
Mhm.
volume of like a whole
Yeah,
cart full of encyclopedias. There were other people carrying like household, like somebody was carrying a lamp I saw. And they in the book too, the guy mentions that like the when the brother is leaving London, the things that people were trying to take with them, the household goods or the valuables or what they thought was valuable. And so I feel like this is kind of a reflection of that from the book, that whole like everybody kind of has a different idea of what they're going to take with them. And so they're trying to get through this big swarm of people, which is another scene from the book, but of course then it was
yep,
buggies
yeah.
and horse and buggy instead of a
And it was
minivan.
his brother. It was his brother, and his brother is currently with, like, he meets up with this woman and her
Yeah,
sister-in-law.
these
It's
two
his
women
neighbor,
who are
isn't it?
fighting off like brigands or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And in the book, they're also like in this big, like, crowded area, and it's very crazy. Like somebody gets like trampled and killed,
Yep.
and they're all trying to leave. I think, aren't they like getting on like a boat or something?
A ferry.
They're
Yeah,
trying to get on a
ferry as
ferry, but
well in the book.
they're trying to cross the English Channel into France.
Yeah.
And in the story, they're trying to cross over to Boston. They're trying to get to
Yes.
Boston. I don't know where they started. I didn't really catch it. I kind of assumed it was like New York City, the Bronx, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember
But
exactly
they're
where they
trying to get to
started.
Boston and they have to cross the river. And at one point, he's like, we'll try to find a bridge that's open or a ferry that's still running.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to get to the ferry. And apparently, they're not the only ones who thought that because a crap ton of people are trying to get to the ferry. And this is where like people are starting to bang on the windows of the minivan and
Because they're,
they're
like, the only people with a car in
right.
the area.
And again, this is where I get mad because like, okay, if the solenoid was the fix, which in reality we know it couldn't have been, but let's just say it was. You're telling me there's not another single mechanic in all of Jersey, New York, wherever the hell they are, that didn't think to replace a solenoid and fix a car?
Yeah, Tom Cruise
All
is just
these
the
people.
smartest person in this whole movie.
Yeah, uh-huh. Ray. Like,
Ray.
it just it really killed me that like that was the only car. Like I whatever. So they're all screaming, they're all banging on the windows. They're starting to like break the windows like bats, and at one point some guy is literally like tearing the windshield open and like
With
bloodying his
his
hands, and there was
yeah.
blood everywhere, like cuz people get panicked,
Yeah,
you know, in these
desperate.
situations, and that was that was wild. And I guess I don't know if Robbie jumped out of the car or if he got pulled out of the car, but like
I think both Robbie and Ray both got pulled out.
Yeah.
yeah, and so they're trying to like fight them off because Dakota Fanning is once again screaming in the
Yeah,
backseat of the
just
minivan,
screaming.
just screaming. And Ray's, you know, for once trying to like make sure that he doesn't get separated from his kids, but like he ends up pulling the gun out of his belt and shooting a couple off to like everybody back away. And
Yep.
then like this one guy's like, you can hear him kind of like, calm down, man. There's no need for that. There's nobody needs to get hurt. Like you were just beating them
Yeah.
senseless. And now you're gonna get mad and upset that he pulled out a gun. Like, that's just weird. Bless you, Dad. But like it was just very like frustrating for me that like, okay, you were all just literally trying to kill each other, and now that one guy has a gun, and also only one guy had a gun. Once
Again.
again, I don't believe this.
It's the mist all over again.
It's the
Yep.
mist all over again. But then it turns out a second guy did have a gun. And he's gonna take the car, and he's like, I just want my kid. I just want my kid. Let me give me my daughter. And so he gets his daughter out of the car. The other guy takes the gun. Ray and the kids run into this diner I guess for shelter just for a minute to like regroup. And in the outside, you can hear like people are starting to fight over the van again, and suddenly like gunshots. And
Because he
so
dropped his gun.
Yep.
because he
And
dropped his
someone else
gun,
picked it up.
right? So then I guess they leave the diner, they get to the ferry, they randomly run into, and I don't understand why this part was even in the movie.
Yeah.
They
I don't get
randomly
it.
run into a girl that he knows and her kid.
Mhm.
And he's like, okay, well, stay with us. We're going to get on this ferry. But then the monsters start, the aliens, the Martians start coming, the
Yeah.
tripods, and everybody starts screaming. And the ferry
They're like, we gotta
ferry boat
close this up.
captain is like, lift the ramp, let's go. We've got to go.
Mhm.
And so he lifts up the ramp, and like all these people are still trying to get on the ferry. And I don't know if these are like National Guard soldiers or police or what, but they're like blocking the way that nobody else can get on this ferry. And part of me is like get as many people on that boat right this very second as you possibly can. Why are you trying to be neat and orderly? Let's
Yeah.
go.
If it's
But
already open, like who cares if like people are gonna have to jump or whatever? Like
right,
just
like
leave it open
just
and
leave it open and
just
let
start
them
going. Like
right,
you can't wait. You can't sit there and wait. You need to start going because what's the point of staying there and waiting? Because you
right.
still need to move out of there.
And
Even though
then
it ends up not even mattering anyways, but
exactly. So then they get separated from that one random woman and her kid, and she's screaming and they're screaming back. But like somehow Tom Cruise and the two kids end up back on the ferry. And then there's a Martian in the water, and the ferry gets toppled over, and they're all in the water, and they have to get ashore, and like
somehow they're the only ones that survived
they're the
and
only
swam.
ones, you know, because that's just Tom Cruise luck right there.
Yeah.
It was just to get us ready for Agatha all along, though.
I think so.
Mhm.
Honestly,
The
I think so.
timing's too perfect.
It really
Yep.
is. That's today too. I should watch that. So then they like they start walking. They made it ashore. They start walking, and they kind of like converge with a whole bunch of other people that at one point are referred to as refugees. Like these are just people trying to get anywhere safe. And they're all kind of traveling in the same direction. They're all obviously exhausted and haggard, and everybody looks like they're dirty,
And these
and
things are just like walking around
they're
all
all
around
just
them. It's
they're
just
walking around
everything's
all
taken
around them.
over.
And then there's some sort of like line of military like blowing them up. And this is where Robbie loses his senses, and he's all like, I'm gonna go with them. And we already kind of covered this. And like Tom Cruise is like, no, don't go. And he leaves Dakota Fanning just standing by a tree and is like, don't move. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get your
Mhm.
brother. And then he doesn't get his brother because Robbie's stupid. And Robbie goes off into this fight where the military gets basically wiped out. They're screaming and yelling, "We can't take this. We're not going to survive. They've got us." You know, like they all die, right?
Yeah.
So then
So you think that
randomly.
Robbie is gonna die. Like, he's
Right,
probably dead.
right. So then they're in, like, they go to the like, there's like, they're walking with other people. Again, there's other
Mhm.
people, and they're all kind of like running away from the like crazy battle that's happening. And this guy is standing near like some sort of like storm shelter basement entrance type thing. And he's like, "Come here," to Tom Cruise and his kid, but doesn't
Yeah.
call anyone else over, even though there's plenty of other people walking around. And then closes the doors once Tom Cruise and his kid are in there. So like, you like handpicked. And my first thought was like, this is a creeper who just wanted a little girl in the basement. And I was like mad they were gonna put this in the movie, but then that's not even what happened. He was just a creeper all around.
You could see
Who's
him
a
And
standing in the
weirdo.
background before everything happened. You could see him standing in the background, just
Yeah.
watching menacingly.
it was just
And there
weird.
was, like, I mean, not exactly like this character, but there was a character
Right.
kinda like this in the book.
Right, "I'm gonna survive by tunneling into London." And this guy was like, "I'm
Yeah.
gonna survive by tunneling into New York, by
That was
tunneling into,"
the
like,
soldier, the
yep.
Mhm.
artilleryman.
Yeah.
I will say in the book, when he, like, got reunited with the artilleryman after surviving in that house for as long as he did, I kinda teared up a little bit because, like, he found someone and it was someone he knew, like,
Mhm.
it was a moment. But anyways, Tom Cruise kills the weirdo because the weirdo's trying to kill him.
Anyways,
Weirdo's trying
Tom
to get killed.
Cruise.
Well, I wanna move through this movie because I
Yeah.
gotta get to a point in this movie that's another one that
Wait,
makes me
but
mad.
this part in the house, I vividly remember this when I was younger, when I had, like, first seen it. That part, like, used to scare me so
Yeah,
bad.
it's scary.
Yeah,
Like, they're
whenever that
hiding in the
thing
basement and this, like, tentacle with an eyeball at the end kinda thing
yeah,
is, like, like, going into the basement and, like, curving around the walls and looking for, I guess, any humans still surviving.
yeah.
And so they're, like, crouching and they're hiding, and then as it moves, they kinda move out of the way, and they're, like, trying to be as quiet as possible, and
That part used to
it's
really scare
terrifying.
me, and, like, my sister and I used to watch it, like, several times. We've watched it many times, and we were watching it together recently, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's that part again. It's the part
It's
that
creepy.
scared us."
It's creepy.
So it was interesting watching it
And then,
again.
like, the aliens come in, like, without the big tripod mech suits, like, the actual creature
Yeah,
aliens, which in the
they're,
book
like,
are
naked.
described as squid-like
They
and
were
also
naked.
naked, but in the in the movie, they are definitely more like, I can't think of what it's called. There's, like, a Kubota, like, I'm thinking of a Pokemon, and the evolved version of the Pokemon,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I
I
can't
don't
remember what it's
remember.
called,
Yeah, I
but
don't
it's, like,
remember what it's
very, like, a
Kinda
called.
like you were trying
jointed.
to say Kabuto,
Maybe, yeah.
but I don't think that's Kabuto.
I don't, well, no, it's the evolved version of it. It's like the, like, articulated arms and disjointed, like, weird twisted joints, and then this big head-shaped thing. I don't know, it's very weird, but definitely not the, like, squid-like creature that's described in the book.
Yeah.
Very, like, this thing actually had, like, limbs and was walking.
Mhm.
It had, like,
And then,
one
like,
leg, though. It was like a tripod. It had 2 arms and 1 leg.
yeah, it was very weird. But then, like, it, like, drank the water and, like, was looking at the pictures in the basement and was, like, digging through stuff, and they're all, again, like, Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning and the random dude are, like, hiding, like, and then they finally, like, get called away, and so the aliens leave, and Tom
You
Cruise
didn't talk about
realizes
the
that, like,
alien almost getting taken out by a bicycle.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that almost happened. That was, I was like,
They're
"Oh,
kinda dumb.
there's there," yeah. Well, I have a feeling that those were, like, the children, like, the baby aliens, because they were, like, super
Um,
curious,
They
right?
also
Like, that's
don't
and
how
you
have
I,
wheels, so they were like, "What is this?"
"What's a wheel?" Yeah.
also, like, maybe that thing that was, like, looking around was, like, checking to make sure it's safe and, like, "Okay, you guys can, like, go look
Like,
around,"
"Okay,
and
kiddos," like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but,
now
like,
I kinda like them.
I mean, and that's what, like, so Dakota Fanning is, like, watching them, like, be curious and look at, like, the pictures and look at the stuff in the basement,
Yeah.
and so, like, part of me was like, "Is Dakota Fanning gonna, like, try to, like, relate to these aliens
Is this gonna be
now?
like
Like,
ET or something?
is this where she's finally gonna have, like, an actual acting role in this movie?" But no, no. So, Tom Cruise realizes that weird basement dude is going to get them killed because he's
Mhm.
loud and he's obnoxious and he's definitely a little on the crazy side, and he has to kill him.
Like
So he
the
kills him.
curate in the book.
Yeah.
Right. And the curate in the book ends up just getting taken by the aliens, but in the movie, Tom Cruise basically like blindfolds Dakota Fanning, says, "Plug your ears, sing a song, do not leave this spot until I come get you." And he goes and he kills this dude, which I feel like, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna say it was a bad thing to have in the movie because I feel like that is something that would definitely happen in a survival
Mhm.
situation. But like, why not just let the alien get him, like what happened in the book? You know what I mean? Like,
I think probably because they were thinking that that was gonna be, like, their, like, safe spot or something.
In the book,
maybe.
though, he also knocks him unconscious, and then the alien takes him.
Yeah.
True. True.
Yeah.
So then they leave the basement. Or well, they didn't mean to leave the basement. Dakota Fanning leaves the basement, and then Tom Cruise
Yeah,
runs
because
after her.
that thing because they're sleeping and
Right.
that thing
That thing
comes
comes in.
back, and
Right.
then
And
she's
it
just
wakes her. Yeah.
screaming, and she's running up the stairs
And then he's
screaming
like yelling
again.
for her, like, "Call to me, call to me, call to me." And then she's quiet. Like,
Yeah.
you've been
Oh,
screaming this
oh,
whole
oh,
movie and now you're going to be quiet?
we also find out before that, which is also, like, in the book, that these Martians, which, I mean, technically they're not called Martians in the movie, but
Right.
these Martians are living off human blood.
Yeah. They're living off
So,
blood.
what they're doing is they're picking up humans, putting them in these little cages, like, attached to them,
Mhm.
and, like, they impale them, suck, like, the blood out of them,
Mhm.
and, like, consume it, but, like, what is the stuff that's, like, spraying everywhere?
It's alien poop.
But that's, like, the even the that almost looks like vines everywhere.
Oh, that's
That's
just
the red
some sort
weed.
of, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
what
red
is the
weed.
red weed? Like, what is that?
So, the way it's kind of mentioned in the book,
It's alien poop. The red
well,
weed.
no, because like the alien poops in this stupid movie too. Like the
Oh,
very
okay,
first
but
scene.
also they're getting the whenever the people are getting sucked up into the from the cage into them, I'm like, It looks like a butthole, like they're getting sucked
Yeah,
up into a butthole." I'm
it's
like,
really gross.
"Ew."
That was my first thought too.
Like,
Wait,
disgusting.
it
Okay,
was
talk about the red weed 'cause
okay. So
I
the red
need to know.
weed, they like he basically mentions that like some sort of seed or growth was brought to the planet either intentionally or unintentionally, which I think is really interesting that he mentions unintentionally because that's actually a huge concern for our astronauts now,
Mhm.
is that we don't want to contaminate space, right? So
Yeah.
we like any or like they clean off like the outside surface of all their spacecraft, anything that like, because we don't want to unintentionally take bacteria or microorganisms or seeds or pollen or anything like that
Mhm. Yeah.
with us into outer space. And so I thought it was really interesting that like even back then H.G. Wells was like maybe unintentionally they brought these seeds with us, like with them kind of like stuck in
Yeah.
their suits or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, it started growing and kept growing with the
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah, and that part whenever he's, like, looking out the window and he's seeing that these, like, people are getting, like, impaled and they're, like, taking, like, the blood out of the people and it's spraying everywhere and it's, like, spraying
Mhm.
his face. I was like, "Oh my god," I get squeamish over blood, and that I did not like that part. That part freaked me out.
It is definitely gross.
It's just spraying everywhere.
It really is. It's really nasty.
Yeah.
So Dakota Fanning gets captured by an alien because she left the basement. And this is when Tom Cruise is like, F these guys, I'm gonna go hide in this truck randomly. And they'll like the
Yeah.
it,
Well, that was before Dakota Fanning got taken. He gets
okay.
in the truck because the alien is chasing him, and the
Because he
alien
was looking for
flips.
Dakota Fanning.
Yes,
Mhm.
but
Right.
she wasn't taken yet. She was just
Okay.
hiding. I don't know where she was.
she was quiet for a minute is what happened, and we all
Yeah,
lost her.
and I was like, "Can you speak? Hello?"
She was
Right.
probably still in the house because, yes, she ran out of the basement, but that didn't mean she ran outside.
Yeah,
Right.
and he's, like, running around outside, and I'm
Right.
like,
Like, why
"Did
didn't
you
you
even look
check the
in the
house?
house?"
Exactly. So, he's out there screaming, drawing attention to himself, and then he goes to hide in the truck from the alien, and is that where he found the grenades? Were they
No,
in the truck?
he was in the truck, and he saw her through, like, a hole in, like, the window,
Right,
and
but
he
when did
saw
he
her
find
scream
the grenades?
so he saw her, like, get taken, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that point, and he saw the grenades in, like, a military vehicle
Okay,
that
so
was,
he
like,
grabs the
turned up. Yeah,
grenades, then somehow he gets caught by the alien too,
yeah.
which I
He
don't
throws a
think he
grenade
meant.
at the shield and
That's what it was.
attracts the
Oh,
alien.
yeah.
I don't think he knew what he was doing at this point. Like, I
Probably
Yeah,
know that
not.
he was like, I don't think he knew that his kid was still alive, because at this point, we don't even know that the people grabbed are living in the cages up there. We didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so then, like, the Martian snatches Tom Cruise, and he gets thrown in a cage, and he's kinda like, and there's a ton of other people there. Happens to be Dakota Fanning is in that one too, and there seems to be, like, we kinda get a view that there's multiple cages underneath this
They're, like,
alien.
attached underneath them.
Like little
Yeah.
baskets
Yeah.
for, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and so he, like, of course, instantly goes and, like, tries to grab her, and she's got the dead stare, and then suddenly everybody starts screaming in the cage because the aliens, like, got its little tentacle coming out of its butthole to grab up some random person to eat with its bu does any turtles breathe through their butthole? Do any animals eat through their butthole?
This
A
one does.
Martians, apparently. Anyways,
Yeah.
so they snatch up a guy, whatever, the alien eats something, and then, like, everybody's still kind of like, there's a handful of people screaming, there's a handful of people doing the Dakota Fanning dead stare. They're like, everybody's in these different states of shock, and then the alien comes and grabs Tom Cruise's leg, and somehow he locks eyes with, like, a soldier for a second, and I think the soldier sees that guy's got a grenade, right? Because
Mhm.
Tom Cruise sees the, like, grenade belt, he still has it in his hand, and he gets sucked up, and, like, the soldier
Into the
grabs his
butthole.
arm into the butthole, and the soldier grabs his arm and is like, "Everybody grab me, pull, everybody pull," and suddenly everybody is shaken out of their shocked state to work together to save Tom Cruise. Nobody else knows he's got a grenade. Nobody else knows there's a plan. They
Mhm.
just suddenly feel like saving Tom Cruise. They didn't wanna
Yeah.
save anybody else.
Not the guy before Tom Cruise, just
No.
Tom
Nope.
Cruise.
Just Tom Cruise, and they
Screw
don't,
that guy.
again, nobody, like, the soldier kinda has an idea, but that what's going on here, but nobody else knows the idea. He's not yelling, "The plan, he's got a grenade, he's not like," no, he's just like, "Save this one man.
Save
Save
him from the
Ray."
butthole.
So they do, they pull him out, and of course, Tom Cruise gets pulled out of the butthole, and he's still holding the pin.
He does he, like,
2.
have it in his mouth or
He
something?
Yeah,
spits the 2
he
pins out of his
the
mouth.
2
Yeah.
pins. So somehow he managed to pull the pins out of 2 grenades
And
with
leave the
1
grenades
hand.
in the butthole.
And leave the grenades in the butt with 1 hand while everybody else is pulling on the other arm, like, that's skill. This
It's
is the
Tom
skill
Cruise.
that Tom Cruise learned. Like, he's like, "I need to learn how to use grenades." So then the soldier's like, "I see the pins," and he's like, "Hit the deck! Like, everybody down!"
And
And,
it's, like, literally, like, just, like, 5 feet, like, what are we
like, I
gonna
was gonna
do?
say, you can't even stand up fully in this little basket cage thing. Like, where are you gonna go? And then the alien is like burps out its, I guess, farts out its butthole at this point because it just got exploded. And now he drops the cage, and, like, everybody just falls into a tree, and no one got impaled by the tree.
I
I
Like,
know, what
yeah,
is that?
I thought about that.
like, there's so much of this movie that ain't right. So now they've killed one, and now they get into, like, Boston proper, and there's, like, a dead creature there that's not the one that they killed. It's just a
Mm.
dead creature, and Tom Cruise realizes that the red plants are starting to die, and he's like, "What's going on here?" And he says something to, like, a couple of the soldiers, like, "What happened? What happened?" And they're all like, "Nothing. Keep moving. Keep walking. Keep going."
As they're
And
trying to explain it, there's, like, an alien in the background, like, throwing up and literally
yeah,
dying right there.
pooping, more poop, more alien poop.
Screaming, crying, throwing.
Pretty much. They're weird, like, wah sounds, like
Didgeridoo.
oh my god. This was a didgeridoo. So,
The Martian's having an anxiety attack in the back.
pretty much. He's just, like, staggering back there, just freaking
Don't
out.
worry, he's drunk. It's fine.
Pretty much. And so then, like, somehow they start to, like, Tom Cruise sees that there are birds landing on the sick one, and he's like, the birds, look. And the one guy's like, can't hear you. What? Can't hear you. What? He's like, there's
Oh.
no shield. No. And then he's like, oh, get the javelin. Like, and then he repeats javelin 1,000 times. So I'm assuming that some arms dealer got some serious product placement in this movie. Like, but okay.
Oh my
So they blow
God.
up that alien, and they realize that, like, oh, the aliens are getting sick. Something's going on here, right? And so, like, Tom Cruise, who's been this whole time trying to get his daughter back to her mother, walks down this street of beautiful brownstones in Boston that looks like it hasn't been touched. The
Yeah.
whole rest of the world is a freaking war zone. But here's
Demolished.
this beautiful street that looks like this most majestic Hallmark movie autumn scene, right?
Mhm.
And they're walking down the street, and he's carrying her because at 10 years old she still can't walk. And he's carrying her down the street. And then the mom opens the French doors of the front, cleanly showered,
Yep.
nice outfit.
The grandparents.
The grandparents, like, it's this
amazing.
perfect, like, picture of, like, happy family. The, like, stepdad's in the back, and she opens the doors, and the daughter comes, like, Dakota Fanning goes running to her mother, and Tom Cruise just stands there like,
Dead.
like, dead. And I
He's
don't
seen
blame
some
him.
shit.
Like, that actually
Literally.
was that was the most honest scene in the movie, is him just standing there like
He
dead.
just came out of a butthole.
He just came out of a butthole. He was instantly shit upon, then dropped into a tree. Like,
He's
I'd be
seen
dead
some
too.
things.
Like, he's seen so many things, because, like, he was not just a little bit. Like, it wasn't just his arm in his butthole. It was everything but the other arm. His whole head was all up in there. Like, poor guy. I get it. He's allowed to be upset.
Yeah.
And then, out of freaking nowhere, Robbie comes out of the
Yep.
freaking house.
How did Robbie make it there first?
Well, the whole time Ray told Dakota Fanning, he was trying to make sure that she was okay and being like, Robbie's not dead. Like, he's not dead. He's going to be back in wherever they were.
Boston.
Yeah, back in Boston with mom. Like, it's going to be fine. And then he really was.
I am so mad that kid lived. I'm mad that Robbie lived, because
Also,
he shouldn't
must
have.
just got there, because he literally looks like
No, he
not even had
looks like
taken a
he got a
shower.
shower too. Like, he looks
I thought
fine.
he was like all like messed up.
He looked fine. I mean, considering what he just lived through, he looked way better than Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah.
But, like,
He didn't come out of a butthole.
he did not come out of a butthole. So, like, I'm over here like, how did he live? Because the whole entire army got demolished, but the one untrained soldier managed to survive and
Yeah, I
make it to
don't know.
Boston by himself. Like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. So I'm mad that he survived. I'm mad that Dakota Fanning survived, only because I just needed her to shut up. I just needed her to shut up. I'm mad that Tom Cruise survived because, well, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's it, period.
I'm mad that the mom and family and the grandpa were all there, happy and healthy.
Yeah.
I'm mad about that.
House
Nothing
intact.
happened.
Like nothing happened. Like, they spent the weekend just chilling inside their fancy little brownstone, you
Yeah.
know? Like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
No.
What in the Full House?
Yeah.
This is the tied in a package happy ever, because, like, in the book, so we find out that what eventually made the Martians sick was Earth's bacteria. Like,
Yeah.
they did not have the immune system to survive. Like, the immune system that we have spent millennia evolving to live with the bacteria in this world, and they didn't get that. So evolution worked against them in that way. And the same ending in the book, it turns out to be that it was the bacteria that killed them.
Mhm.
In the book, the narrator finds out that his wife, the town where he left his wife with their cousins, got demolished. He is assuming she's dead. He goes home, and they write in the book about how he wandered around for a few days and has no memory of those days, and that what's been filled in for him by other people is that he basically was just like in shock. He was in incredible shock. And I loved that part in the book. I feel like that was very realistic. Somebody who just survived what he went through is bound to not be right in the head for a while. It's bound to take a bit to kind of come back to themselves. But eventually
Mhm.
he finds his way home, knowing that his wife is probably dead, knowing that his whole town is, barely left. Like, he even gets to his house and like the windows are broken and the door is off the hinges, and but like also the thing that he was working on the day before it all happened is still sitting there on his desk, and it's a very surreal thing for him to be back there, especially with the place being empty. And then he steps outside, and his wife and the cousins are there because she's just like, I had to come check, I had to come back, I had to
Yeah.
come. And so like they kind of they have that kind of wrapped up moment, but it's not this perfect like everyone survived and everyone lives happily ever after like in the movie. It's very raw in the book that like the wife survived, but he talks about like how his neighbors aren't there and his
Yeah.
friends aren't there, and he
Mhm.
Yeah.
so I feel like, I don't know, I was very mad about that ending.
I heard
But
that people did not like the ending, like the fact that what killed the Martians in the movie, what
mhm,
killed the Martians was um like Earth, like the diseases on Earth that they weren't able to
mhm,
adapt to that.
mhm.
And people don't realize that that is actually exactly how it is in the
That's
book.
exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
That's like, even in, I know I talk about Star Trek all the time, but that's kind of my passion. But
Yeah.
like in Star Trek, they talk about that. There's episodes about that all the time, that like
Mhm.
picking up a disease from a new place,
Yeah.
and they don't go places until they can go through the biofilters in order to like filter out anything that they might have brought along with them. And so this is not a new, well, it was at the time of the book, I'm sure, a new concept, but like when the movie came out, this has been something that's been in science fiction for 100 years at that point.
Yeah.
So for people to be like, "Oh, that's not how that would happen." Like that's, and even humans now going to different parts of the globe, we have to get different vaccines to go to
Yeah.
different parts of our own planet. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So of course that's going to be reality.
Yeah.
So what got me thinking in this whole book, and I want to ask you ladies now, is what stuff, like the aliens are attacking, you've got 2 minutes to leave the house, what do you carry with you? What are you throwing in your backpack? What are you putting in your shopping cart that you stole from the Dollar General down the street? Like, what are you carrying with you? What's the important stuff? Like, assuming you already grabbed food, because we're not stupid and we will get food. What are you grabbing?
Lindsay, you go first.
Grabbing my cats. This one.
Yeah.
Carrie, you're not grabbing the Encyclopedia Britannica
No. No. I
volumes A through
honestly
Z.
I think that's such like a difficult question. Like if literally aliens were like coming down right now and I had to hurry up and grab things. Like I'd just be like grabbing my family, like making sure like we're all in the same location,
Mhm.
right? Or like how do we get to the same location if we're not?
Mhm.
Right.
You know? Because I was honestly thinking I'm like in the movie, I was like why not just, like, try to hunker down in your place? Like, if you had, like, a basement or something, why are they leaving?
And you should. Like, really,
Yeah,
there's so many different types of disasters that, like, if you think of it in the terms of a disaster,
yeah,
y staying in place is usually the safest thing you can do.
yeah.
You don't
That's probably what I would be doing. I'd be grabbing my family and would be like, "We're hunkering down in the basement right now."
Yeah,
I probably would not be leaving.
and even, like, the narrator in the book at one point gets trapped in a house and he's surrounded by all the aliens, but he still manages to survive by staying quiet and staying put,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
And that's another one of those tropes in all the, disaster movies is that, like, everybody just running around not knowing where to go or what to do when, like, staying at home is, get down in the basement, take your food and your books or your light flashlights or some candles or whatever,
mhm.
and just go hide for a few days. And legit in this situation, unless an alien stepped directly on top of your house or shot that heat ray directly into your home, like, you they would have been safe if they had just hunkered down for a couple of weeks until all the aliens died,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of is, like, running out of resources or something, but
Right,
other than that and, like, you don't know what's happening because you didn't go out, you know, looking around and what's going on.
right, right.
But I don't know, I was just like, I can't see myself, like, grabbing anything because it's like, you can't communicate. Like, if we're going by the standards of what happened in, like, the movie, I can't communicate by my phone. I
Right.
can't, I don't wanna leave. I
Get
don't
you
think
a
I should be
ham
leaving.
radio.
Yeah. Like, I'd probably be trying to, I'd be going through, like, my garage, like, looking for things, like, flashlights, candles, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
I'd be
And I think, though,
doing
the thing that makes people leave more than anything else, and we saw it during the pandemic, is that nobody wants to be stuck alone.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to be, hunkered down in their basement for a couple of weeks by themselves, and so they run to go find mom. They run to go find, their neighbor, their best friend, their
Yeah.
kids, their whatever, and especially when there's no communication, what are you gonna do? You can't, like, I don't my daughter doesn't live with me. She's a grown ass woman and she has her own house, and it's about 30 minutes from where I live.
Mhm.
If I didn't know she was okay, like, it would be the hardest thing in the world to not go check, you know?
Especially, I mean, going back to, our missed episode, you know, they don't know that the mist is not
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah,
So, we don't know that these Martians are not just in this location and not everywhere else because, like, communication is cut off.
mhm,
So, understand the idea of wanting to leave and possibly, like, get away from the area because maybe it's just here and maybe they're moving somewhere else and you wanna go in the opposite direction or something like that.
right.
So,
Pretty
I
much.
understand that idea as well.
Yeah, I think that's usually what gets people out when they should have probably stayed home.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, unless you ladies have something else to add, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Anything?
Yeah, yeah, I
All
think that's
right.
it.
Well, thank you so much to our awesome listeners for joining us this week. Again, that was War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells and the 2005 adaptation with Tom Cruise. You can find some bonus content on our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are available on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We are basically, if you want to find us, you can find us, and we're happy to hear from you. So please feel free to reach out. And don't forget to join us next week on another chapter of Based on a Book.
Bye.
Bye.